listening to the Book Perspective Podcast, a podcast for all types of books. And even though we read all types of books across all different types of genres, we want to give a disclaimer. Many of our books and a lot of our content sometimes is intended for mature audiences. And we don't believe in censorship, but we do want our listeners to have the opportunity to decide if our episode or podcast is good for them. So, with that, let's get into the episode. Hey, it's Dominique.
And Keely.
And you are listening to Book Perspective. And this week we are covering Master of Me by Keke Palmer. And we're doing these back to back, so I don't need to ask Keely how her week is. Just a little bit of a notice. You might hear KG in the background, our off and on guest. Uh, that's that. When is this episode? This is the 17th. It's President's Day. I have nothing to say about that. I don't think there's any other announcements.
So
I don't know. When this episode drops, I'm gonna be headed to Florida. Hopefully it'll be warm. Okay. Well, so our last episode was a new format. We're still doing that. So hopefully this will go. Plus, especially this episode, like after reading this book. Interesting. After reading this book, it's very much like more self-help anyway, like the format of this memoir. So it definitely flows with how we're doing things. So, Keely, do you have the blurb?
I have the blurb. In this exhilarating, deeply poignant, and often laugh out loud book, Lauren Keyana Palmer gets real about life, career, and spirituality. She talks about the tools she has developed to take the reins, harness her vulnerability, and recognize her ownership and mastery over her own life to turn her personal power into major power. With her unique blend of humor, empathy, and truth, Keke details her journey back to herself as she finds a new center within motherhood, career, and relationships. Right when it seems like all the pieces were coming together and Keke was living her dream, her world got derailed. She had put in the hard work, she had put in the sweat, her passion and heart had gotten her to where she had always wanted to be, yet she was faced with the hardest challenge and was forced to look inward to find an even greater depth and understanding of herself. In her own raw and intimate words, Keke talks about everything, including her struggles with boundaries, unconditional love and forgiveness, and worthiness. She walks us through how enduring the challenges that has come our way leads to true performance, power, and purpose.
All right. If you could describe this book in one word, what would you say?
I would say inspiring.
Okay. I was gonna say own this. So since we're talking about a person, I'm gonna do like a little bit of like a bio on her, and then I'll do like a I don't know. I don't even know if I can do a general summary, but yeah,
Yeah, I
so
think a general summary may be a little.
it might be weird. I guess I can just
Yeah.
highlight some of the topics that are in here. So Miss Keke Palmer, aka Lauren Keyana Palmer. We're close in age. I am so older than her, but she was born August 26th in 1993. And she's from Harvey, Illinois, which I remember like this is probably like 5 to 10 years ago. Probably not 10, but like someone I feel like that I know or someone that I know that knows someone had posted. She was like in Gary or like in the region. It was like for Thanksgiving because she was home. And she like went into like I feel like there's somebody I know. I think I know who this person is. She went into like a drugstore, like a CVS or something like that, and they got a picture with her because we're in Indiana. We're not far. And I was like, oh, like that's so cool. Everyone, I mean, who does not know Miss Keke Palmer? Like, first of all, like Queen of the Memes, Keke is like my favorite is I do not know this man. Or you know it's your girl. Like that's also my favorite. Keke has starred in like a bunch of movies. Notably, that's Aquila and the Bee. She was in Barbershop too. Most recently, she was in Nope. And what's the one that just came out?
One
Didn't
of
you go
them
see it?
days,
One of
which
them
is
days.
fantastic.
Yes. She most recently, which I feel like is like more so the catalyst for this book, she has a son, which her son, first of all, because when she named her son, we was like, Kiki. This is so Kiki. What is his name? It's like Leotis or something like that. It's so Keke Palmer. She had a son a few years ago, and that sparked her son's father sparked a big controversy, which is a big thing in her book. I feel like it's a little bit of a catalyst for her writing this book, even though in no way, shape, or form does she need a catalyst from anybody else to write this memoir. She's just very accomplished. I really do love Keke Palmer. I think she's very wise for our age. I think she's very accomplished. She's just very down to earth, and not that Hollywood does not change people or like touch people. I think she's done a really good job in remaining as wholesome and real as one could. So this book was actually released in November of 2024. So like general summary, this book is not linear at all. She basically, it's really more like self-help. She talks about a little bit of her backstory, and she kind of like talks about it throughout. She gets lots of accolades to her parents. It's funny because she talks about her mom like by her first name. She calls her Sharon. um, she talks about being a mom. She talks about what it's like to have been not the head of their household, but the financial lead of their household at a very young age, and like the responsibility of that. The difficulties of dating as a celebrity. She does talk about the Usher situation. She talks about just Hollywood in general, like always, like the comparison of Black people against each other in the not or how would I want to say this? How like Black people or Black actors, Black things are always compared against each other, where their white counterparts are not. She also just kind of talks about being yourself, like knowing yourself, being yourself, um, like not letting things like detract from the focus of like your own accomplishments. So there's lots of different things like that she talks about in here: misogyny, misogynoir. So there's lots of different topics. It is a short book. It is not very long. So if you can read it, I do recommend it always. So yeah, that's kind of just a general summary. Triggers. There are triggers for
I
spousal. Oh, did you make a list?
there's some on the
Yeah.
story graph,
Okay.
but racism, bullying, child abuse, abuse, adult minor relationships, sexual assault, and sexual harassment are some of them. Toxic relationship, domestic abuse. Yeah.
I'm trying to look something up because there's something in here. Okay. So, if you have not read this book and you would not like to be spoiled, this is your notice to pause here and come back later. Otherwise, we're going to get right into it. So let's see. Still getting used to this. Um, so like general thoughts, anything like before going into it. I know,
So
like, yeah.
initially was expecting like a traditional memoir. But as you mentioned, it kind of leans more kind of like a mix between memoir and self-help. Um, which was not an unwelcome surprise. I do wish that we got some more like of her life and growing up in the industry, but um I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I same. Like I thought it was gonna be more linear, more story, versus like introspection. I felt like,
Mhm.
but I'm not mad about it. That was just what I was expecting. I do not ever, as you guys know, like read the blurb or look at anything like that. So I didn't know how she was approaching. approaching this. Um, I mean, I already read her background. Obviously, I don't think there's anybody in this world who doesn't know who Keke Palmer is. um, I feel like I knew everything about Keke Palmer. I mean, I don't know everything about her, but I feel like I know there wasn't a situation in this book. Well, no, there were some. There was probably a few, but I would say at least over 50% of the things she talked about, like I already had like some idea. I wasn't like there wasn't anything in here that I was like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened. I either had like knew about, kind of knew about, wasn't surprised to hear about. So I don't know about you.
Yeah, same.
Um,
Kiki was one of my favorite childhood stars. So,
Interesting. Okay, don't know that man. Anyways, okay, so as far as like initially like just getting into the book, I felt like I feel like I kind of just get right into it. Kiki's narrating, so that just makes it easier. I love when they narrate their own books. Actually, I don't know
yeah.
that I've listened to a memoir where they haven't narrated their own book. I'm trying to think. Well, no, Britney Spears didn't narrate her own book, but Leah Michelle just sounds like Britney, so that makes it that was different. But yeah, like I mean, Kiki is just very engaging. So just
Yeah.
off of that, like
And she knows how to entertain too.
yeah, like it's just very much Kiki. Like it's just I can see her the whole time I'm listening to this book. So I'm
Her
instantly
facial
like,
expressions, all of it.
yeah, like I'm immediately like sucked into that. I don't think there's much to say about first impressions. Other than that, really. Yeah, KG. What do you think? Were you sucked in?
With her messy hair.
Do you feel like were you engaged? Do you feel like I know it's not linear. Do you feel like it made sense as far as like what she was talking about? Like
Yeah, I and yes. I think that it was very engaging and I think a lot of it is because Kiki is the master entertainer, storyteller. She is good at what she does, so she does it well. And again, I love Kiki, so it wasn't hard to, you know, listen to anything that she had to say. Um, we did bounce around a lot, and I wished it was a little more linear, but it made sense with what the topics and points that she was focusing on at that point in
that
the
segment?
book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
There
Definitely.
was some things that I wish she would have expanded on a little bit, more so on the memoir. It would more so be on the memoir side of it, but overall, it was enjoyable and a very quick and easy read or listen because there was no way I was not listening to the audiobook.
Yeah, no. I highly recommend always, but definitely when it's a memoir. I'm trying to look up this guy. Okay, there it is. Okay. I kind of want to just like pull up like my bullets as they go. So this one, I guess I don't have as much details notes, but it kind of gives us more to talk about looking at what she was talking about. So first of all, Kiki is a Virgo. She gives very much Virgo energy. She is just like bubbly and like she just is Kiki Palmer. Like she just is. She is not like the only child. She does have siblings. They're twins, I believe.
Mm.
And so like a big part of her life has been that like, when her family and her decided that she was going to go to Hollywood and do these things, like they all went and she knew like, okay, I'm paying for everyone. So she talks about that throughout. There's also she does a podcast, and there's like
Mhm.
excerpts from that
And that was
throughout
cool
this.
actually being able to listen to those as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. I didn't like notate on them, but they're just throughout, and it is like nice to like hear that. She does say like she never wanted to be a performer, which I feel like they always say that, and that's the only thing I have a hard time believing. I just well, well, no, I'll take that back. What I feel like they either always say I never wanted to be a performer, or they say I always wanted to be a performer, and I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about either one of those things. Um, I don't know, but she does mention that, and she immediately like one of the first things she talks about is her Angela Bassett impersonations, which she is well. As a matter of fact, it came up on my TikTok yesterday when she finally had got to like sit down with Angela, and she does the Katherine Jackson, the "I don't want you, I don't want you, I don't want you no more." And she just does Angela so well. Like she does
She does.
Angela so well. It's so whenever they do Angela's movie, I cannot wait for Kiki to do it. Like if
Right?
they do an Angela movie and they give it to anybody but Kiki, that is going to be a flop. And they have to know that, and maybe that's why they don't do it. I don't know. Because I don't know. Because it can't be anybody but Keke Palmer. Like it just
No.
can't. Um, so she talks about how like she watched shows growing up, which made her realize like all of these things are not they're not just entertainment. Like it really is about like storytelling and like navigating complex emotions, and watching TV like really helped her not feel so alone in her experiences, because she is like a dramatic, I guess you would want to say, but that's because like she's an actor. Like she's a theater kid. And she remembers like specifically she mentions how she watched this show, and this like goes into like several topics she talks about throughout. She watched a show of a girl who was reminiscing about her childhood, but the girl like as the girl is thinking about herself as a child, she's supposed to be 13, but she doesn't look 13. But then the girl's mom is also thinking about her, and like the mom's vision makes her look 13. So like in the girl's flashback, there's things that are happening to her, but because she doesn't appear to look so young, it's not as unsettling. But when the mom is flashing back and you see how young that girl really looks and is, because she actually looks her age, it's like very like unsettling and grotesque, which is the issue with like Hollywood. And like one of the things that's like a thread throughout her memoir is about, you know, the over like sexualization of like these kids, how they see themselves and how people see them as well, they're so like mature for their age. They're so mature for their age. And she immediately started talking about, and this is what I was looking at. Now, I did not, I don't, that's why I was like, I do not know this man. When Kiki was 15, she was dating her co-star who was 20, which is Rodney, what's his name? Rodney something. Never heard of him, but I'm gonna look him up. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So, anyways, he's not important, so we're not gonna spend that much time with him. But anyway, she was dating a man that was 5 years older than her. Not only like that's not really the point. The point is that she was 15 and he was 20. So he's a grown man and she is a child. And so like in her mind, but I'm mature.
Yeah.
And her parents, like she gives them accolades. They are very good parents. It wasn't that they allowed this. They did not know until she was like 18. Like they did not know about this, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And she mentions how like that relationship like shows like how she was so vulnerable, and then like the power dynamics are just off. And I think that's like such a testament to so many girls. Like I dated like older men when I was younger, and like we just always think like, oh, like this is so mature of me, da 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 da, and it's like, but it's not actually, and it's gross of them.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, it is like it is a power dynamic thing. Your brain, your frontal lobe is not developed. You don't know anything, and that is why they like you, because you don't know anything. Um, and what does a 20-year-old want with a 15-year-old? What can I do for you? What can a 15-year-old do for you? Like nothing. It's disgusting, honestly. So, you know, I just think, and she's very like open. I mean, she does not mention, does she even mention her? she mentioned it. I don't think she mentions anyone's name. Like I don't think she gives
No.
anybody a little fame drop in this book, which I like. So but she like states like she can now like admit like he took advantage of her, and her whole thing, like her whole purpose in life, she says, is really to allow people the ability to find joy in difficult situations. That's just really like what she sets out to do. So she moves on into talking about how she looks up to Josephine Baker, and she says like Josephine Baker tried to do the same thing. Like her whole goal was like trying to like find sensibility and good in each person. And her other like idol that she would look up to was Judy Garland, because her mom really loved Judy Garland, and she thought like Judy Garland did such a good job of incorporating all of her skills. And so she thought that Keke could be able to do the same thing. And Keke always says like, people think I'm just doing the most, but she's like, well, look at where doing the most got me. Like, yeah, I'm gonna keep doing the most because like that's why. And it's almost like, I mean, you have to be multifaceted. Every time I turn on the like I look on TikTok or something, I was gonna say turn on the TV, but I don't watch TV. Every time I'm on TikTok, and it'll be like Jonathan Bailey, for example. Jonathan Bailey's in Bridgerton, da, da, da. Now all of a sudden he can sing. Tell me one actor nowadays that can't sing. And it's always like, oh my god, they can sing, but it's like, oh my gosh, like they have to. It's like they all have all of the skills, because if you don't, like you almost have to now. Like now that
Yeah.
precedent is set,
And if
it's
you
like they
don't,
have to.
then at this point they train you to. And it
Yeah,
makes me think of like High School Musical, which the first one wasn't Zac Efron, it was Drew Seeley. And
yeah,
then throughout the rest of it, it was Zach.
yeah. Like you have to be able to dance, act, and sing. You have to be able to. And like if you can't, like there's very few, like I'm trying to think like newer actors and stuff like that don't do all of them. Like I don't know, like I feel like back in the day, like yeah, no, people just kind of stayed in their lane, but like now I don't really think that. Like I feel like most people do all of the things. Um I mean like even like Zendaya's multifaceted. She does all of the things. I mean, she's kind of though in Kiki's like age group, so there's that. But I'm trying to think like younger than that, but I can't really. I don't know. I mean, even freaking Timothy Chalamet. I don't know. Like they're all doing that. So she also like reflects on her like being in her first movie, which is Barbershop 2, like which I love. And she was only there for 4 days, and her mom like treated it like this really big job because it was. And like her mom would ask her like so many questions at the end of the day, and she's like, "Why is this lady asking me all these questions?" And she's like, at first, she like her mom would be like, well, what did they say? Like, did like the producer, which was Kevin, did he give you any feedback? And she's like, no. And her mom would be like, oh, that means like you did great. So that made her feel like very confident. But then like she started getting all this feedback. So she was like, oh my gosh, like I suck, basically. And she ended up having like an anxiety attack on set. And Kevin like found her, and he was like, no, like you're doing a great job. Like you're I'm just gonna give you feedback. But she ended up being able like to keep the shoes that she wore on set, and like her mom ends up apologizing. But that's funny because we just talked about the neighbor favor. But it's like the same thing. Like it's like that was coming from a place of love,
Yeah.
but it set her up because she thought, okay, I'm doing great, and then all of a sudden now I'm getting like bam, 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 and now like I must be a failure. And so her mom like recognized that very quickly and apologized for that. And that helped her like learn that she has to separate, which is something I would not be good at that job. Separating her performance from her emotions. Like I just like that's hard. Like especially like on the level that they are. I don't know. Like I would no, I never want to be famous. Like I just want to be rich. I don't want to be famous. I do not want to be famous. Like I don't. My emotions cannot handle that. So then when she moves on and she talks about black movies, which this is like a well-known fact. It's funny because I've been like, I decided, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to commit to this, that I was going to cover black movies on my TikTok. Um, and it's just funny because like black movies, and that's what she says, they don't get like the like national like acclaim that like movies do. Like we know, like, I'm trying to think what movies that she even mentioned. I don't even know. I didn't write down exactly which ones, but we like know like classic black movies. Like, I hate this movie now, but Love and Basketball. Like that's just like a classic black movie that like everyone knows. Or like that's not, or like a Tyler Perry movie like that does like numbers like in like the black households, but that's not like a critically acclaimed like math like a big box office movie or anything like that. And she like also like obviously she is a black actress, and there's very few, she mentions like there's very few black actresses who break like the box of like I am a black actress. Like Keke is probably in that box. She's like a Sanaa Lathan or like a Nia Long or like any like a Taraji Henson. Like they are not. Versus, and this goes into colorism, and she talks about that a lot. Versus Zendaya, like, and I'm pretty sure she mentions in here that she's always comparing. And I'm pretty sure it's Zendaya, and Zendaya like recognizes this. That's the perks about Zendaya. But like Zendaya is not considered a black actress. She is when it checks the box that like a box needs to be checked, like a DEI box. I hate to even say DEI right now, but like to check that box. But she's not, like she is in white films every day like that. She's not boxed in like that, and there's very few that break that mold. And again, but it does go back to colorism, which I'm jumping around, but like Keke talks about that, like you do have to be palatable to be able to do that, and you do. And the good thing about Zendaya, and this isn't about Zendaya, but like Zendaya is one of those actors that like recognize that. Like if the role calls for a black actress, and Zendaya's like, okay, like if depending on the role, she's like, I don't fit this. Like I am a biracial, like light skinned person. Like you need to get like a dark skinned actress for this. Like that's not me. Like I'm not going to, like if the biopic, I can't remember what biopic it was. I feel like they asked her to do, and she's like, no, like that's not me. I'm not that person. And you just have to respect that. She also talks about how obviously, so then like the reviews on those movies, like a Tyler Perry, whatever those are, they generally are not as good. And so like she has to, like Keke recognizes that that is not a reflection of the work that I actually put into this, because she realizes how those movies are then received. She also went on to talk about, how black actors are always pitted against each other, and that's not always the same, like for their white counterparts. So, they are going to compare her to Zendaya, or they're going to compare Taraji to Violet Davis or something like that. I don't know. But they don't always necessarily do that for their counterparts. And um, then she switches gears and she starts talking about dating. And she talks about how natural it is on set, whether it's a lot of times your co-star, but it's just so natural for like feelings to develop because I mean, I watch movies all the time and I'm like, yeah, I would be in love. I would be like, I would fold. Like I would be the worst person for this because you cannot look at me with those eyes or say these things to me and then be like, cut and walk away. Like, so like she talks about it. And then like outside of just like the acting, like they spend months together at a time. Sometimes they're in like very isolated places where like they have no one else to hang out with. Of course, like you're going to develop feelings for a person. Um, and then on top of that fact, generally when there's press tours, if this is a movie that centers around a couple, they love to play that up. So like that's very hard. And so she spins that into talking about dating someone who's not that person and how um it's like, it's not always received well. So again, she jumps around like a lot in this book, and she talks about like the panic of like not being able to care for her family, and how she had to learn that that is not her responsibility. She had like, as I feel like a lot of child stars do, except for like literally like Zendaya. I keep bringing her up in this, because she had, most child stars have that issue where they go from like I'm too old to play a child star now, especially Disney stars who have this like image about them, and then they need to find out the most palatable way to break that mold and move into new territory as an adult actor. So she had a time where she was not working. And so then she was like really trying to work. And so she was like talking about how frustrating it was or how hard it was to try to be multifaceted because she goes to work for Ryan Murphy because she's going to work on Scream Queens. She loved that job. She loved Ryan Murphy, but she was also working on an album or like something music at that time. So then she was like trying to have like a really good like schedule and stuff. And basically like she had to stand up to Ryan Murphy because they did not respect her schedule. And he told her she was like being unprofessional. And she's like, no, you're being unprofessional because you gave me a schedule and you're not following it. And I was like, yes, tell him. Yeah. And she's like, and I still love Ryan Murphy. Like, you know, like I still respect him, but like I was gonna lose money and like I can't do that. And then she goes on to talk about like again, very black movie, very important movie. She talks about Waiting to Exhale. One, she mentions Angela again. She talks about Bernadine in her monologue, which I freaking love that. Like, I love it. I love it. I love it. Anyways, I love when she sets his car on fire with all his stuff in it. I was the background to your foreground. I love it. But then she talks about Savannah, who is he's a good man, Savannah. Um and like she talks about Waiting to Exhale and just like the like release, the exhale, like the side that like all women are just like waiting to have like that moment where they can just like release. Which leads her into talking about feminism and how feminism to her is basically like it's the right to be an individual that's not just in response to misogyny. And she really liked Barbie and how Barbie just really like explained misogyny so well and how like Ryan Gosling played Ken so well and like the representation of how like a man really is reflected by like the things he has and the woman he has. And just I don't know. I wish Barbie would have came out last year and not 2 years ago, and maybe we would be in a better place. I don't know. Like I just like the Barbie thing was so. I was like literally I was thinking about this like last night or the night before, and I was like, we just did Barbie. We just did this whole like thing. We did this whole thing. People were having this whole like come to like Jesus moment. This whole like, huh. And now it's like, nope, we're like back. I'm like, we should just like held on to that one more year. And maybe if we'd done Barbie last year, we would be in a better place. Because I was just like, I don't know. Like Barbie was so good. Okay. And so she also mentions too, like just the fact that no job is ever gonna pay you what you're really worth. And I think that's so important because people are always like, you need to get paid your worth, you need to get paid your worth. And it's like, you're never gonna get paid what you're worth. Like
Right.
if there's a job that can pay you like your worth, like you're gonna be rich. Like so like that's just like a fact. Like a job can pay you well. They can pay you well, but they're not gonna pay you what the worth of your life is.
Yeah.
And another very important thing she mentioned is like sometimes not getting the opportunity is just as equally as important as getting the opportunity. And how like, you know, we all have like experienced like that like letdown of like not getting something that we really, really wanted. And like just trying to like recognize that like then that wasn't for me and there's a reason I didn't get that. Um and she moves into talking about her son's father a little bit. She talks about how she doesn't think that he realized the boundary that she holds between like herself and her in the public. You know, she's like, I'm a very outgoing person, but I'm not as outgoing as like I am for the public. Like this is a persona, the Keke Palmer. You know, Lauren is not as extra. And she does consider herself to be a little more introverted. And she, you know, she said she was always taught to keep her relationship private, but I am so sorry, Kiki, but I am about to talk so bad about this man. This insecure little weasel of a man. First of all, when this whole thing happened, I said, who are you? You are the employee. If you don't know that Darius, the baby daddy, he worked for Kiki. Like, you literally are the employee. You are the employee, and I do not like you. That whole thing, if no one knows what happened, when Kiki has her baby, and she talks about it here in a minute. I'm jumping ahead. She has a baby. If you've never had a child, you feel terrible about yourself afterwards because your body literally like implodes. And so she like has her baby, she's out with her friends. Again, she's out with her friends as Keke Palmer. And she goes to Usher's show in Vegas. Usher was doing his residency. Usher had been like pulling celebrities because, like, this is, first of all, this is Usher. If you did not go to the Usher concert, it was amazing. I didn't go in Vegas, but I did go to the tour. Amazing. Usher had been pulling like female celebrities at each show and like like a little sexy like moment with them. It's a show, whatever. Keke comes out looking amazing. This is postpartum, like got her like, I don't want to say got her body back. Like she got her new mom body, like curves for days, looking amazing. Her outfit was very good. Like people are like, she shouldn't have worn that. She's basically wearing like a bodysuit, and it is like cut like on her butt. But she's a like for celebrity talk. First of all, Kanye West just brought his wife naked last night to the Grammy. It's like
Seriously?
100% naked. She was butt naked last night. So in celebrity world, Keke was very covered. She might as well have had on a nun outfit. Like she literally had on a bodysuit and then like the bottom half of the dress was sheer. I feel like that's a very standard like celebrity outfit. I feel like we've seen it done like a lot of times. She looked very good. She was out with her friends. Usher comes over, he grabs her hand, spins her around, they sing together, she sits down. This loser at home feels like a loser, gets on the internet saying, as a mother, how could she get out? How could she do that? First of all, sir, as a father, why are you at home employed by the mother? No, anyways, don't take
And
it.
as not a mother, how do you have room to speak as a mother?
Yeah, like it doesn't matter that she's a mom. Also, prior to Keke, like all of this, prior to all of this, like he has posted videos of her like dancing on him, like provocative thing. That's fine. So now it's like, oh, like now you're a mother. What? No. I cannot stand like a man that gets with a woman and then like all the things that were okay, like when he was trying to get with her or they were dating. Now that he has this woman, he wants her to be completely different. Also, like nothing about what she was wearing was tasteless. She is a celebrity. That was a show. I very much think that Usher could take your girl if he wanted to, but I do not think he was trying to take your girl. So there's that. And then like it just and then as a father, you got on the internet and badmouthed her. Like it
Instead of
didn't.
having a discussion.
Yeah, like you look crazy, and then you enraged all of the weak-willed baby daddies of the world. Like that. That also, you just woke all of them up. All of the men with microphones were awake. Oh my gosh! Like just and Keke is so mature. And then after this, we get the video of him putting his hands on her, like he was beating on her, because he was weak. He's weak. He's a weak man. So I know, Keke, not that you're ever going to listen to this, you are so much more of an adult than me, and I praise you and I love you for that. I like that you're mature, but I wanted to say that part because I don't like him, and there's that. From one cousin to the next. So, anyways, so yeah, so she's talking about this. And so basically, and the reason again he also probably feels this way, not only was he the employee, is because she's like, she was always taught to keep her relationships private. And it's hard for the non-celebrity person sometimes, especially if they're insecure, to understand what that it's like, like I'm not doing this because I'm ashamed of you. Like I don't want them in my business. Like it's not out of shame. But if you're insecure, you're not going to understand that. So I'm sure like he already was like feeling like, and it's not that she had never posted with this man. Everybody knew that she was with Darius. I think that's his name. Everybody knew that, but like it's just like he's just whack. Like that's just really what it boils down to. He's lame. So there's that. And let's see. She said it's like she was like very surprised. Like she did not expect what happened to happen at all. And she just like really wants people to know though, like in her mind, she was like, if they start to focus more on that situation than like on Keke as an individual though, then we've lost the plot because she's the plot. And that's very big of her. And she recognized, she said, I am not the first person who had a breakup after having a baby. I am not the first person that's been in any situation like this. And so she recognized all of that. So she kind of jumped around and then she moves on to talking about how like she loves to celebrate when us as Black people are like the first of anything, but she wants us to remember that we need to make sure that it's not the only. And you know, we should really no longer be surprised by systemic racism. We should be exhausted at it. And she just talks about how like the whole function of racism really is distraction. It is rage baiting, like, and that is it. Like, oh, I'm gonna tell you. I can't remember like exactly what her examples were, but it's like, oh, I'm gonna cancel Black History Month, so like you're gonna spend the next 6 months talking about that. So meanwhile, I'm gonna do whatever this other thing is because that trick worked, and that is the function of racism. You know, like, and that's true. It is rage baiting. This is finally, I already talked about this, but this is when she moves on to talk about how her work is always tied to her skin color and how she's always being compared to another actor, which I think I'm assuming it's Zendaya. I don't know. That was
That's what I
my,
was too.
yeah, I couldn't think of who else it could be like at a similar age of lighter skin. Like maybe like Amanda Seals, but I don't think she's as popular. I'm gonna go with Zendaya. Like that's what I, you know. And she talks about how like basically like we just have to go through life like being like water. She says we need to be flexible. She talks about pregnancy, how she loved being pregnant, but it was very hard for her, which I loved. I had the same sentiments. I love pregnancies. I just will never do it again. But she felt like so ugly when she was pregnant. She hated her skin, but like feeling her son inside of her just made her feel so strong. And she moves on to talk about how also like her as a person, she used to put a lot into like helping others, but that if you're a person who builds your self-worth on helping others, it won't last long. And being a mom really helped her because now she like, okay, like no, like my son is like my priority now. So like no, and like boundaries and like that has really helped her like standing up, which kind of makes her jump back a bit. This is another big thing that happened to her with Trey Songz. Her and Trey Songz actually were really good friends. And he basically kind of assaulted her in a way. She talks about how men think that, you know, it's not about men wanting a woman, it's more so about showing that they have power. And he basically, like, he did something to her and recorded it, like he tried to kiss her, something like that. I can't remember. And then one day he was like, well, I'm gonna put it in my video. And she's like, no, I don't want it in the video. He agrees, and then he puts it in there anyways. And so she went off on him publicly, and the people were like trying to get on her like she was wrong, which is how it always, you know, that is how it always is. It's always the victim's fault. Like you shouldn't do that. And she talks about how rape culture is just so normalized. But she said basically like she does not regret going off on him because she said quote unquote that this was a notice to never fuck with me again. And I love that. Like, yeah, like I'm not the one to be played with. She's not the one or the two. And I love that. Like, don't do that with me. Go find somebody else. She does go back to her baby daddy. She talks about how she knew that he had red flags there, but in her mind, she thought that as the person that loved him, she was choosing his green flags and not, she was like, you know, basically like, if you get in a fight with your partner, like the next morning, are you supposed to dwell on it or should you like move on to the better things? And she's like, I thought that I was like moving on to the better things and focusing on that versus on dwelling on the bad. But she, you know, she realized like, I can't allow my son to grow up seeing these negatives. Like I have to choose my son. And then she moves on to talk about misogynoir, which is misogyny, but like specifically black, and the hate that black men seem to have for black women. And a lot of times they'll say like, how do I hate black women when I date black or whatever like that? And I mean, it's apparent. Like it is very often it this could be like a whole topic in itself, like it really could. But she like basically says too how when a black woman does not buy into the propaganda, that is when all of the envy and hate comes out. So like it goes from being like, oh wow, she's so amazing, very quickly to being, who does she think she is? Like because she
Yeah.
doesn't buy into that. And I like,
And
yeah,
I think one of my favorite quotes that she had was from this part where she pretty much said that they don't hate you for who you are, but for who you aren't.
yeah, yeah. Like that's basically That's basically what it is. And she also says, like, if someone doesn't even see themselves like well, like how can you possibly expect them to see you well? And that's what's wrong with a lot of these people. Like they're envious, they're jealous people, and so they're not ever going to give you your accolades. They're not ever going to like lift you up or like do any of those things. So like that's like the last point I really like took out of this. She throughout this book she takes these like stops to do like a pop quiz kind of thing and talk about like okay like reflect. And I think it is really good. Again, like I hope she does another one later in life and really does like a full on memoir, like start to finish linear of her life, but I do think I see why she did this. She addressed the elephant in the room, which really was the Usher situation. Along with a few other things, I think she just had like small those other situations, the Trey song, those are all things that have happened too, and it's like it has kind of snowballed. But yeah, like I would like to see her do another one like later in life for sure.
I agree.
Yeah. So some of those questions they don't really apply. I guess like what
Apply,
thoughts
yeah.
do you have?
Like I mentioned before, I really enjoyed it. I was surprised that it was more self-help than memoir, and I would really like for her at some point to do if she did a memoir, like a full memoir, I would definitely jump at it. Um but there was a lot of things that she brought up that was really nice to kind of reflect on and see that no one is um excluded from the kind of issues that everyday people have. You know, she is one of the biggest um celebrities, and she deals with, yeah, just yeah. She's human too.
Yeah, I think Kiki brings up, or like talking about Kiki brings up a big part. I think, like, especially like in the Black community, like, I don't know. I can't say like beforehand that I was like, he's a loser, but like, there is like an epidemic going around that is a sensitive comment, like, topic of like these like Black women who are like in their like Hallie is another one. Like, they are like at the pinnacle of their career. They're at very high points. And then they go, and not only are they dating losers, but they get pregnant by them. And then this is the fallout of it. And it's like, I hate to see it so bad. And I have a child out of wedlock. I had both my kids before I was married. So I'm speaking out of experience, not about of like do what I like. I'm not trying to like I'm just saying like I just want that to stop for us so bad because men suck. Like and I do, and I just feel like they are like they like see you like at the top of your game, and they're like locking you in, lock you in, lock you in, and we want to be like these loving creatures, and I love this man, and I love him, and it's just like and it just takes like it's never before like all the things like we can never do it before the baby. Um, and I hate that. Like I'm like, ugh. And it's not like people are like, why do you always have so much to say about? Because it's like, it's not a word. There's not a word to put. Like it's not. I guess it is disappointment. Like I don't want that for you. Like I don't want that for you. And I'm not saying that it's always going to turn out like that, but it does. Like even freaking Rihanna. Like look at Rihanna right now. Like he's on trial and he's facing like 24 years in jail, like for something stupid. And it's like like there's like very few situations where like they get together and it's like, oh, like this looks like it's going the right direction and they're like doing it quote unquote the right way. And I just hate that. Like I'm so tired of seeing that. And it's not that it stopped anything for Kiki, but like I think like in Hallie's case, like it did slow her down. Like Little Mermaid didn't get nominated for anything. Like she lost a lot of things when she got pregnant by DDG. And then she did very well for a while, but like she did a public fallout with him like on the internet not too long ago, and it's like I just don't. I want her to like fix her crown and be better than that, and it's like they just drag you down. Like I hate that. And there are good men out there. So if there's like the 1% of men that listen to this podcast, we do know that there's good men out there, but I just do hate to see it. And it is like an epidemic, like in the black community. Like it is like a specific black thing. Like there are several black celebrities that are pregnant right now, and it's just like no, no. And they always say it's like hating, but it's not. Like I'm not hating. Like I want better for you. And I don't think that this will be that. So I'm glad that Keke, you know, her situation is great. She has a great support system and her family. She even talks about in the book too, like how her sister moved in, like with her when she needed her the most. Like she didn't even realize, but it ended up being a time when she needed her, and that worked out great. But it's just like, man. So yeah, I don't know. Ugh, that's all I got. Those are my thoughts.
What'd you rate it?
What did I rate it? I don't know. Did I end up rating this? I just want to look back and I've like forgot. I'm pretty sure I rated it. Oops. Maybe I'm forgetting to hit save because I just forgot to do that on something else. Let's go to my.
I rated it 4.5 stars. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
I
Would listen to
rated
it again
it. Yeah, I would definitely listen to it again.
and recommend it to everybody.
I gave it a 4 stars. Yeah, I would definitely listen to it again. So, do we have reviews?
Yes, let's see. 5 stars. Was for sure a different book than I thought I was getting. This isn't a memoir per se, but it's more of self-help, how to be your best self with advice on how Keke has managed to do so. I still genuinely enjoyed this and think it was the perfect read for me at this time in my life. I definitely learned a lesson or two. And then 1 stars. This is only 2% of the ratings have been 1 star. Um, wasn't really this wasn't really a memoir. It's a self-help book disguised as one. I was excited for this because she is such a bad A, but there wasn't much actually in here. It is more motivational talks and lacks the vulnerability and meaningful storytelling that makes a good memoir. A few chapters in, I thought, well, maybe this just isn't for me. But the more I read, the more I had issues with it. The book felt preachy and out of touch, especially when discussing acting and finance. And chapter 26 was basically an ad for her platform. Celebrity memoirs rarely work when they lean into self help, and this was no exception. This felt like being at a mandatory corporate training.
Oh. Mm,
These
okay.
past two 1 star reviews from the past two books have been harsh.
Yeah. Yeah. For giggles, I'm just signing up for pre-sale for the Beyonce tour because I can't afford it. So I can get in there and see how I can't afford it. Plus, I don't feel like fighting for that. But I feel like I don't like care that much about it. I just want to go like for the experience because I feel like I haven't gotten any of them, so I just want to go. But okay. Anyways, all right. So our next book, we are back in Throne of Glass. That is Empire of Storms. That's a very, very good book. I'm very excited for that one. And then we only have two more after that, and then we'll be done with SJM until further notice, which is kind of crazy to say. So, yeah. And I am reading Onyx Storm. I'll be done this week. So I'm like, I don't know how many chapters in. I was doing it yesterday, so I don't know. I'm like, they haven't even left Best Guy yet. And I'm like, I'm stressed out. I'm stressed out.
I cried at one point,
I'm like, you have no good news for me. I know. So I'm like,
and then at the end, I
yeah.
I was so mad that I was working myself up into an anxiety attack. Like I was that mad.
Oh my gosh.
So
I am
upset. Right now I'm
stressed.
like regretting starting this book and then like starting the series and then having to wait for the next two
Yeah.
books.
like 2 years, I think. That's ridiculous. I don't know. I'm like, yeah, I'm not very far, but I'm just like, there's no good coming out of this book. Like we're right in the middle. I'm like, there's nothing good coming out of this. So
We get some answers, but then we're left with more
more,
questions
yeah, I'm
than
just
we had
so annoyed.
initially.
Ugh,
And there is some things that are addressed that yeah. Yeah.
great.
Woo! I'm so mad.
Okay, well, that is all we have for this week, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.